Hey, we're trying something new. We're trying something different. Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett. We are live here on Chatterbox Sports. Grip It and Rip It is the name of the new show, and we're excited to be off and rolling here today on what is it? Oh, yeah, it's a Wednesday. And by the way, this new show, Grip It and Rip It, Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett, that rhymes. Yes, it was not done intentionally, but we're going to have some fun with this. Again, a new show here on Chatterbox Sports. Chatterbox Sports, you have obviously Off the Bench Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon. Now on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from noon to 2 right after Off the Bench. Grip It and Rip It with myself, Justin Kinner. And tell me when I'm allowed to put the guy on the camera, Mr. Jacob Tissett. So where we're set up, you're right across from me now. So I get to point across.
I'm on now. We're ready to go. We're off and rolling. I'm excited. I'm excited to get started. I met you for the first time. Got to work together up at the Memorial, and that all went well. So I guess you liked me enough to do this. So here we are.
So I lost a bet, but that's besides the point. That's besides the point. But so, again, we're trying to do some things to kind of like, obviously, we're going to talk a lot of NFL. We're going to talk a lot of Bengals. We're going to talk a lot of, other teams other than the Bengals. We're going to talk a lot of college sports as well. Like, because Jacob and I, big college football fans. I think we didn't mean to do it, but we both showed up wearing our Buckeye attire. We will talk a little college football and Ohio State Buckeyes coming up. Dave Biddle, bucknuts.com, 24/7 Sports. Dave and I go way back from starting early on in my radio days, so I'm excited to catch up with Dave. I think Dave's been on Chatterbox Network before, I think on Tom Brenneman's show, but we're excited to catch up with him, and we'll get to him coming up around 1 o'clock. Lots going on in the world of college football. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at some of the toughest schedule, like Florida's schedule. Have you seen Florida's gauntlet of a schedule?
A lot of these SEC team schedules are absolutely ridiculous this year, adding in Oklahoma and Texas. They all play at least one of them, and then the non-conference is crazy.
So I'm trying to pull up Florida's now, and obviously it's something we could share coming up here in a bit. But look, we'll get into some headlines coming up here around the corner. News, not news. There was a poll from The Athletic that was put out about which organizations have bad reputations amongst players in Major League Baseball. Where the Reds fall on this list is actually kind of interesting. So we have that coming up here. Jake's looking at me like, huh? Yeah, you kind of have that morning show you do. So you're kind of like, you're just kind of going along for the ride until we get a better thing going of me telling you what the hell we're going to be talking about on a daily basis, of course. But nonetheless. You want to start out with a little non-sports story of the day, by the way?
Sure.
Because this stuff's wild. I caught this on the way in. Now, this isn't like a Joe Rogan, like conspiracy theory type thing. But Daily Loud on Twitter, okay, like 3 million subscribers. Okay, so I first had to check to make sure this was a verifiable thing.
Right.
Aliens might be living among us, disguised as humans, in a base inside the moon, according to a new Harvard study.
Wow.
Aliens as humans.
That's interesting.
Living among us, coming from a base on the moon. So there's some people think we've never been to the moon.
That's crazy.
But now some people think there's no such thing as aliens. Some people think there is such thing as aliens. You know the balloons? I don't know. But that's terrifying if there is potentially aliens walking amongst the earth. Maybe you're an alien. Maybe I'm doing a show with an alien right now. I have no idea.
You never know. But, yeah, I mean, I've always been an aliens guy. I think it's naive to think we're the only life in this entire universe. It's pretty big. A lot of stuff out there, expansive universe. So I think there's aliens out there somewhere, whether they're on the moon or not in a secret base. I don't know if I'd go that far.
Now, there are some people that I think are aliens because there's no way that an actual human would think this. A quick transition back into the world of sports before we really push people away. How about this? Grant Williams. You familiar with Grant Williams? College basketball, played his days at Tennessee, played with the Boston Celtics for a little bit. His feelings are hurt. He's an emotional guy.
We hate when athletes' feelings get hurt.
I hate when athletes' feelings get hurt. Grant Williams says it sucked when he did not get a tribute video from the Celtics. Think about all the great Boston Celtics. Think about the Larry Birds. All right. Think about even the Paul Pierces. I mean, even with the game where he almost pooped himself. Think of all the great Celtics. And he's upset as a non-Celtic great that he didn't get a tribute video in his return to Boston. What is happening?
There's got to be a line for tribute videos somewhere, right?
I think we're a little too loosey-goosey with all the retiring of jerseys. I just don't agree with that. Kev Nash, my co-host in Dayton, we talk about this all the time. Like as far as Anderson Varejao getting his jersey retired with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nope. Like that needs to be all-time greats.
No, I agree. People talk about LeBron getting jerseys retired with 3 teams, and I love LeBron, but he only brought 1 championship to LA, and the Lakers are such a historic franchise. I don't know how much I think he should have his jersey retired there, but that's beside the point. It should be guys who are monumental in the history of your franchise. It's nothing other than that. You don't get it for just being an all-star or an all-NBA player. I think it needs to be something even bigger than just being a great player. You have to mean something to the city and to the franchise.
Well, to be fair, you can argue that at least Anderson Varejao meant more to the Cleveland Cavaliers than what Grant Williams
For
did,
sure, no question
to the
about
Boston Celtics, especially a team that didn't win a championship. At least, there's that aspect. Now, Anderson Varejao, was he on the Cavs when they won the title in 2016?
I think
was he coming off the bench
for the Cavs?
Was he coming off the they brought him back, right?
He got a ring, but I don't think he contributed in the finals much at all.
That's what I thought. So, nonetheless, a little bit of a loose start to the show. We're going to figure this out. I haven't even checked. What's our graphics package look like right now? What's our graphics package?
It's the Kinner and Kev graphics.
It's the Kinner and Kev, and that's totally fine because we're going to be adding some new stuff as time goes along. See, I got to wait for them to skip the ads. There we go. Oh, there we go. See? So we got the little topic bar on the side like it's not outside the lines. What's the PTI,
right?
Pardon the interruption, yes. But there you go. So we're going to get into some, the cheer the opposing players thing is pretty wild. The Cardinals are down big time.
Crazy.
Right? Sad fan base, if you ask me. We'll get to that coming up around the corner. News, not news. Dave Biddle, we'll talk some college football with him coming up at 1 o'clock. The Reds' reputation poll I want to dive into. NBA Finals Game 3 coming up tonight. And again, you're watching Grip It and Rip It here on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. So, real quick, because we're just getting to know one another.
Right.
We've been thrown into the Lions' Den.
Yeah.
You went to Alabama.
I did.
Graduated from Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Buckeye fan. Did you play sports at Alabama?
I did not play sports at Alabama.
You look like an athlete.
I worked for the football team. I worked in film for the football team, so I was, at practices and games and everything like that. That was fun and all, but I never lost my Ohio State roots. Grew up an Ohio State fan. Still root for them all the time, and 2020, that national championship, I had some mixed feelings. I got a ring out of it, which is always great, but it was tough to see the Buckeyes lose.
What made you go to Alabama?
I got a job and I went for free. So
that's
about covers it.
Enough said. I went to Wright State, so I'm sitting over here acting as if but I'm poor. So
fair.
I'm poor, but I don't know if you're rich or poor, but the bottom line is when you said you got it for free, then at that point, I don't blame you one bit. All right, news, not news, okay? I throw out a headline. I throw out something out there, and you tell me if this is newsworthy, not newsworthy. People in the chat will keep an eye on that. We'll get their feedback as far as this is concerned. I heard you guys talk about this on Off the Bench just a little bit ago. News or not news? I think we need to get with Elliot about what we consider a streaker, by the way.
That's fair.
What would you call the kid or the college student or the drunk adult, if you will, that ran out onto the field? That's not a streaker. What do we call them?
See, I think streaker's fine. I think streaker plays. I know it's technically a field stormer. Streaker has to be naked, but I think everyone knows what you're talking about when you say streaker. If you watch that video, most of the replies to the Chatterbox Sports tweet was screenshots of the Merriam-Webster definition of streaker.
So what was it?
I think a lot of people naked on the field. So I think a lot of people agree with you. But I think kids, a little younger, around my age and everything, it's been so long since we've seen a naked field stormer.
And I'm not saying I wanted to see this dude naked by any means. Not even close. I just wanted a little clarity on what we consider a streaker or just a dude that was just running out into the field just to get his ass kicked, because that's basically what happened. By the way, 2 things. Did he deserve to get tased?
I don't really have a problem with it. I know a lot of people do. But he had 3 steps on the security guy. If he gets over that wall, he's gone. So if you can't catch him.
But I feel like the reason the cop did that is because his feelings got hurt. His reputation was on the line. He got backflipped on. And to be honest, he was right there within arm's length. All he had to do was grab him, hold on to him.
Right.
Like that. Don't blame the guy for getting loose. Like, it's your job to get a hold of him. I mean, he has arm tattoo, which, by the way, got a new tattoo yesterday. Got my first tattoo. I was terrified of it, but this cop, tattoos tough dude. And you got backflipped on
by a 19-year-old.
He's 19.
Yeah, 19-year-old college kid.
He looked like he was having fun. I could tell he's young. He looked like he was having fun.
Went to my high school, St. Xavier Bombers.
Do you know who this guy is?
His older brother was in my class. I'm trying to get in contact with him to have him on Off the Bench sometime this week.
I was just thinking that. So his name, are we allowed to throw out his name? He's an adult?
He's 19, so I think so.
He's a criminal. William Hendon. That's his name. He's 19. But we want William Hendon on the show.
We do.
Or on Chatterbox in some capacity on one of the many great shows we have here on Chatterbox Sports. But the bottom line is news or not news. So he basically got away with it. All right, the judge basically told the fan who crashed the Reds game, everybody thinks you landed that backflip. Nothing. You got what, a slap on the wrist?
It was a felony originally, and it got dropped from a felony to a misdemeanor. So I like it. It's my take. I said it off the bench a couple of hours ago, but if a dunk is so cool and it's a charge, you shouldn't call the charge if the dunk's cool enough. He landed the backflip. It can't be a felony anymore. That was way too cool to have that be a felony. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it. If you do something that cool, you got to let it slide.
Nate on YouTube says, whoa, new show, Grip It and Rip It, different from Kinner and Kev. Yes, different from Kinner and Kev. Kinner and Kev, still weekdays from 3 to 6, by the way. I'm making the drive Monday, Wednesday, Friday to come hang out here in Hamilton to hang out with Jake. And Grip It and Rip It, Monday, Wednesday, Friday from noon until 2. And then I'm getting back in the Kindermobile and heading right back, to Dayton to knock out the afternoon show there on radio. So, yes, different than Kinner and Kev as far as that's concerned, but a new show here on Chatterbox Sports. So just to answer that. So that's news, right? That's news?
That is news, for sure.
Nonetheless, people a little upset that they took it easy on him.
Yeah.
He didn't get to take it easy. He got tased. I don't think he should have got tased. I thought it was a little ridiculous. Just because your ego got hurt because you couldn't grab doesn't mean you should have tased him. Look at the picture. You saw the picture. Look how angry he looked.
The full body.
The look of like, man, I wish this wasn't a taser. I mean, let's just be real. That was kind of there. News, not news. We'll definitely know that this is news. Legendary NBA figure, basketball figure, Jerry West has passed away at the age of 86. I don't think we need to debate that. Definitely news. Caught the NBA, caught the basketball, caught the sports world by storm this morning. That's been all over social media. All the sports talk shows have given Caitlin Clark a little bit of a break to talk about another legendary figure, and Jerry West. What? Where'd you think I was going?
I like it. That was good.
Nonetheless. But Jerry West, R.I.P. in peace.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the logo of the league, everyone knows Jerry West, that still in litigation with HBO at the time of his death for the Showtime.
Is that his final battle, huh?
I guess that's his final battle. He's going out fighting.
Nonetheless. News, not news. Aaron Rodgers skipping all of Jets' mandatory minicamp this week. According to ESPN, formerly ESPN's Diana Taurasi. My gosh, see, now I'm Diana Rossini. Because Aaron Rodgers prefers to be somewhere else away from football. News or not news?
I think it's only news because it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you see a lot of veterans and stuff like this skip mini camps, skip OTAs. I think it's because of what Aaron Rodgers has done in the last calendar year or so to keep himself in the news. I mean, the quote last year where he says, if it's not football related, I don't want to hear it. And then now he's skipping mandatory football practice to go do something presumably not football related. So I think it is news just because Aaron Rodgers makes himself news. But, if Josh Allen was skipping mandatory minicamp or something like that for a personal issue, I don't think it would be talked about nearly as much.
So I honestly think that voluntary minicamp, this is the stuff that drives me nuts about the NFL and really all sports. I have no clue why there are limits on how much you could practice in the offseason. This is your damn job. I feel like teams should not, and I'm defending the players here, to sit here and do this to shrink a window of time down to say that you have to be, it's mandatory to be here for this week or we'll fine you, but it's voluntary the week or the 2 weeks before leading into it. Why do we put all these cute little, names on it? Just show up and get prepared for the season. I don't care. Obviously, it's all about content. It's all about, I guess as sports talk hosts, we should be happy with this type of stuff because it's something to talk about. But it's not news to me, but you're right. Because it's Aaron Rodgers, it is news. Because he's coming off a season-ending injury, it's news. Because, he's a future Hall of Famer. Because there was talk last year of the Jets being a front-runner to win a Super Bowl. People have kind of backed off on that a little bit, but high expectations for him this upcoming season. Right. The bottom line is, yes, it is technically news in that from that standpoint, but why do we have all these restrictions on when these teams can meet? This is their job. College, I understand. There's dead periods, recruiting dead periods, and everyone follows the rules, right? There's, practice time, non-practice time. These are technically students, right? I get why that exists in the college world. But the NFL, I have no clue why there are periods where you're not allowed to be out on the field. You're not allowed to wear pads. You're not allowed. It's the National Football League. These are grown adults. If these organizations want to have practice, if Aaron Rodgers wants to show up to practice in June, great. If he doesn't, who cares? This is only news because the NFL sets up these stupid rules that they have to show up for this week or 2 weeks of practice.
Right.
Hell, Zach Taylor, 2 years ago, basically just gave him the last 2 or 3 days off, basically saying it didn't really matter. So if why do coaches get to dictate when it matters and doesn't matter? I have no problem with Aaron Rodgers not showing up. I know that's not a popular opinion. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, I do totally agree. He's an established player in the league. You know what he can do when he's healthy, and that's the ball in his hands. So last thing he needs is more practice to learn how to throw a football. He's been doing it forever.
Big Love on YouTube says, I love the new show name. It's a new show. All right, it says Kinner and Kev at the top. That's not Kev, by the way.
It's
Jacob
not.
is not Kev. The new name of the show, the name of the new show, if you will, Grip It and Rip It. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon to 2. We're going to keep plugging that throughout. The Kinner and Kev Show stuff at the top will be replaced with the new Grip It and Rip It logo when that does come in. So keep that in mind. But Roger says, sounds like a golf show. Sounds like a golf show.
Look, we know. We know it sounds like a golf show, and maybe we'll talk some golf every now and
Maybe
then.
I'll yell for from time to time.
Yeah, there we go. But not going to be a golf show. We're going to talk about everything.
And first of all, let's be clear. We barely talked golf at the Memorial,
Right.
so what the hell makes you think that we're actually going to do this as far as that's concerned? News, not news. Adam Silver, NBA commissioner. Adam Silver considering creating a task force to improve the replay process. Adam Silver says, I'm just like a fan at home thinking 30, 40 seconds. What is happening? What's taking so long? News or not news that Adam Silver is considering such an aggressive approach that we're going to have a task force for instant replay in the NBA.
I'm going to say not news just because how many times the commissioners and heads of other leagues have talked about improving replay, and we've never seen it. I mean, replay in every sport is still a long, drawn-out process that is pretty difficult to watch and slows down the game more than it ever should now when fans at home can recognize a call 10, 15 seconds into a replay, and it's going, 60, 70 seconds, slowing down the game, over a minute. So, yeah, I'm going to say not news until I see some kind of concrete improvement just because, I've heard something like that, I feel like, from a lot of different commissioners and a lot of different players, but it never seems to come to fruition. So, yeah, I'm going to say not news until I see some material change.
Not news, whatever. It's June, the NBA Finals. There's so many non-NBA Finals talking points. This is what we're going to talk about the NBA coming up here in a moment. Do you like this Finals? We'll get to that in a moment. Because I feel like the NBA Finals going on, you got Game 3 tonight. And I can name 3 or 4 basketball topics that are at the top of the page news that's way above NBA Finals. Whether it's Caitlin Clark in the WNBA and in the Women's USA team, whether it's the replay task force that Adam Silver's talking about. Obviously, Jerry West passing away, R.I.P. in peace as far as that's concerned. Obviously, the coaching search for the Lakers. Like I promise you, the week of the Super Bowl, there are not other NFL headlines that are bigger than the actual game itself. We'll talk about that coming up here in a moment. Continue to go down the list. News or not news, Team USA Selection Committee Chair Jen Rosati on leaving Caitlin Clark off the Olympic roster. She says, it wasn't the job of our committee to decide how many people would watch. It's our job to create the best team. News, not news.
I'd say that's news. I think everything with Caitlin Clark is news now. She's the heartbeat of that organization, or that heartbeat of that entire league. So the heartbeat of the sport, that is women's basketball. So I think everything involving her is news right now. And look, I get what she's saying. It's important to get the best players. It's not about viewership. You're trying to win a gold medal. But at some point, growing the sport and keeping eyes on your growing sport, it has to be important. I mean, you're missing out on an opportunity to capitalize on the biggest peak women's basketball has maybe ever had. Not maybe, definitely ever had. So, I think it's a big mistake for Caitlin Clark to be left off the team, which I know we talked about before, but, I think that's even hiding behind something else because her stats are better than some players who made the team. So, I don't think, I don't think it's all above board why she was left off the team. I think it's about, bending down to some of those established players that have shown a little bit of jealousy towards Caitlin Clark and showing them that, look, we'll throw you the bone. You're more established. We'll leave her off, make her do a little bit more, even though she's already proven she's one of the best players in the country.
So yesterday on my show, and by the way, this is news because you're right. Anything that comes out of the mouth of anyone other than you're right, we should have had her on the team, it's news.
Right.
Because it's all foolish. Look, the women's game is looking more and more foolish as each day goes on. Now, for some of you out there, like, man, be careful. You're talking about women's sports and blah, blah, blah. No. You wanted the coverage that every other league gets, male or female, this is the type of coverage it gets. This idea that the media is soft with the NBA or with the men's game or with the NFL, no, it's cutthroat. people still feel like the media is too aggressive with those sports. So this idea that the media is overstepping their bounds when it comes to women's sports, you wanted sports coverage, you wanted coverage. This is the coverage that comes with it. The other thing that pisses me off about the excuses that they're making is this. When they say things like, and talking about anyone that's in charge or higher ups of the WNBA or Team USA, saying things like, well, it's our job to it's not our job to decide how many people are going to watch this, that, the other, acting as if your standards are at the same starting block of everybody else's. Maybe Team USA on the men's side doesn't have to worry about adding someone that's going to help with ratings because people are actually going to watch. That's not a shot. That's not me being aggressive. It's common sense. When people take shots at the WNBA and says nobody watches, people are like, oh, you're just sexist. Or I saw the numbers. Maybe that has something to do with it. If facts trigger you, that's a you problem, not us problem. But the numbers are going up. They are because of Caitlin Clark. Not an opinion, not a hot take. Again, it all goes back to facts. It all goes back to data, numbers. It's backing all of that up. So to sit here and say, well, it's not our job to, well, you can't sit there and say it's everyone else's job to grow the popularity of your sport when you're not doing everything in your power to help grow the popularity of your sport. That's the problem I have. Everyone's doing this all high and mighty. Oh, but we have it's a 2-year process of how we vet the talent of the pool that tries out for the, stop it. I don't need a 2-year process to know that Caitlin Clark should be on Team USA. So this is definitely news. It's just the decision makers, digging their heels in as far as that's concerned. Nonetheless, news, not news. Last one here, Jacob. How about Christian McCaffrey? Okay, by the way, how you feeling, Bengals fans? You got duped. Now, I know a lot of you acted like you don't care that it wasn't your boy Joey B on the cover of Madden. You all thought red was orange last week. You all thought the voice of Christian McCaffrey was Joe Burrow last week. I was sitting with you guys. I was sitting with you at the Memorial, and all y'all Bengals fans sitting around me, making me sick, okay? Sitting around me. That's an orange light, dude. That's an orange light, dude. All of you. Oh, man, that's his voice, dude. That's his voice. That's his voice, man. It wasn't his voice. That wasn't orange. That was red. And that wasn't Joe Burrow on the cover. That was Mr. Christian McCaffrey. But Christian McCaffrey on the cover of Madden 25. News, not news.
Oh, it's news. The cover of Madden's always going to be news, I think. Madden.
And first. I am making fun of you, by the way.
I know. I know. I'm overjoyed that Joe Burrow's not on the cover, by the way. I mean, I'm a Madden curse guy through and through. I think that's about as real as it gets. So with a quarterback with already injury concerns, to be on the cover of Madden, coming back from you don't even know if that bone in his hand's going to grow back. But, we'll see what happens. And the cover of Madden definitely would have been a bad start to this season for him. So I'm glad it's McCaffrey. I think he deserves it. I think he's one of the biggest name players outside of the quarterback position in the entire league. He's obviously incredibly productive. So, you keep some validity behind it instead of giving it to a guy. I love Joe Burrow, but he only played 10 games last year. So if you're going to honor someone who played really well last year, I think Christian McCaffrey's the right pick. But he's a running back pushing 30 years old, just signed a new massive contract. We're going to see if the Madden curse is real this year.
So the interesting thing about that, can someone who already technically has the Madden curse get the Madden curse? I'm just saying.
It could compound exponentially, which would terrify me.
Or it would void?
Or void. One of the two.
To be fair, I was just giving you, I don't know, we're allowed to cuss on this show. We're just giving you crap. I'll figure out the rules.
I know.
I'll figure out the rules as we go here. But I actually thought it was Joe Burrow as well. Christian McCaffrey, not a bad player to put on that list as well, or on that cover as well. You kind of got to break it up every once in a while. You can't put quarterbacks out. You can, but, to kind of mix it up. Someone said, where'd it go? Remember the last running back to be on the cover of Madden. What? I saw the other day that McCaffrey, the first running back on Madden cover since 14, but they brought up Peyton Hillis.
Well, wasn't Adrian Peterson on the Madden 25 cover?
Yeah, so
the original Madden 25
that's what you
cover?
talked about that too when they kind of got like the 25th anniversary one.
Right.
So Barry Sanders was on the worldwide cover, and Adrian Peterson was on the alternate version for PS4 and Xbox One. See, There's all these different that's why I don't like when they do all these different covers, if you will, or whatever, because technically it just kind of it's not as much of a privilege when you're one of 5 people that grace the cover every year. One player on the cover. Forget the deluxe editions, but that's not how this works. I'm 34. I'm old, dude.
I like it.
That's the
like
get
that
off my
take.
lawn in me right
I like
there.
that take.
So, the other, you want to know my other get off my lawn take? Maybe you'll agree. I'm tired of watching the Boston Celtics wear black jerseys at home in NBA Finals games.
Cosign.
I am very about the NBA because all these jersey changes, it's all about the money. Major League Baseball is doing it. They could do the City Connect stuff. I know you guys touched on that, I think yesterday or today about that. But when I watch Lakers and Celtics, and it's in Boston, it's at the Garden. I want the white jerseys for the Boston Celtics at the Garden, right? And then I want the Lakers in their purple jerseys on the road. Then you got the Lakers coming in, and they're wearing their white jerseys, and the Celtics wearing their black jersey, or whatever you want to call it. It drives me up the wall. I think home teams wear your white jerseys, road teams wear your dark jerseys, and then all will be well in the world. Simple as that. That's my old
agree more. And I like a lot of the City Connect jerseys in baseball, but I like home whites and away grays in baseball as well. I get a little bit traditionalist in that sentence. I don't like when I'm watching a game and I turn it on and maybe the scoreboard's not on yet, you're coming out of commercial break, whatever. I should be able to tell who the two teams on the court are. That should not be a challenge. Like, I don't know why the Denver Nuggets have jerseys that are black and red. Like, that's not their colors at all. Like, I hate it. If you're going to go alternate, at least the Celtics do still have the green on the black. It's still our Boston Celtics jerseys. But I totally agree, especially in the big stage. If Jason Tatum makes a, game-winning jump shot or something like that, why is that iconic Celtics picture not in green on home court? I totally agree.
Or, and I know people, behind you is a green wall. All right? Well, people don't see the green wall. What they see is a great backdrop. But that's not Celtic green behind you.
Right.
But that's Celtic green now. It looks like a green highlighter on the center court for the Boston Celtics. And the Lakers, it's not purple and gold anymore. It's like fluorescent yellow.
Yep.
So stop messing with that stuff, man. Like, again, so many problems in the world, and I'm focusing on color schemes for NBA teams.
It's Nike. It's Nike. That's the only people I can blame, I think, ever since they took over the MLB, rolling out all these new jerseys, messing with logos, throwing the swoosh on the chest, all that stuff. And then obviously when they took the NBA from Adidas, doing all the City Connect jerseys or City Edition jerseys in the NBA, 4 or 5 new jerseys for a team every year. It's just ridiculous.
So Roger wants Butker on the cover, by the way, going back to the Madden cover. Wants Butker on there, by the way.
Fair.
Yeah.
He's in the news.
America. There you go. Oh, man. Can't believe people got – I'm not reading half these. Yeah, some of these comments get a little dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
They set you up for failure.
Oh, yeah, you got to stay on your toes.
No, but I don't read them. I read them, and then I react to them. But I got to proofread them before. It's got me in trouble on radio quite a few times, to be quite honest with you, as far as that's concerned. But they want a Butker segment as far as that's concerned.
Well, we'll keep that in the back pocket.
Yeah, we don't talk about kickers.
If we got it,
unless our guy Urban, new friend of the show.
If he wants to talk about Josh Lambo, we can talk about Josh Lambo.
Was it Elliott the other day? He was all upset about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes kickers deserve. There's been a kicker in your lifetime that deserved to be kicked.
One in particular, we're both wearing Ohio State shirts.
I'm just saying, yeah.
Wanted to kick somebody on New Year's Eve 2022.
Luckily, it was Ryan Day that was leading the Buckeyes that night, but that was such a wild game. It was so unfortunate. That's how you kicked off, 2023 or 4?
Three.
Yeah, it was 2023. Great time, though. The clock struck midnight. It was horrible because Ohio State loses that game, but sports gambling, officially legal.
That's true.
As of that point. I was really curious if that game would have gone to overtime, could we have started placing bets on Ohio State in Georgia in overtime if it would have gone to OT?
That's a good question. I
was really hoping
live
for
it would have popped up. No.
Yeah.
If it's
you
legal,
would think.
if it hits legal, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool.
Nonetheless. All right, so if you're just joining us, we welcome you on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. Again, Grip It and Rip It, the name of the new show, which you can catch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from noon to 2, immediately following Off the Bench. Jake's going to be pulling a little double duty for a little bit until the end of the Red season, I believe. So good for you. But so am I. So I'll be making the drive Monday, Wednesday, Friday, doing the show from noon to 2, then heading back to Dayton to be on the air from 3 until 6, of course. But, hey.
That's big
They're
time.
Worst jobs to have.
6 hours of live content's tough.
It is, especially in June.
Yeah.
Especially in June. That's why I'm so glad that everyone hates Caitlin Clark now.
Right.
That's why I'm so glad, all right, that that the Bengals have players that people actually give a blank about. That's why I'm so glad that the Reds decided to be a Major League Baseball team when the clock, struck midnight and the calendar changed to June. I'm so glad for these things because I was having a panic attack in May.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of players people care about, Adam Schefter loves to point at our wide receivers, but you have a wide receiver of your own missing training camp.
Why do you focus on the negative?
Amari Cooper. Where's Amari Cooper?
What about him?
He's not
a dog, dude. That's the number 1 wide receiver in the AFC North. Oh, wait. Remember what I said about the basketball stuff? Stats, dude. Look at the stats. It's the leading receiver in the AFC North, dude. But, yeah, he's holding out. And don't blame him. This is the last big contract opportunity he's going to get.
For sure.
He's led the AFC in receiving yards and catches the last 2 years. He's the first Browns receiver, since the team returned to Cleveland in 3 decades. It's the first time that a receiver has had back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons. He has been the guy. I mean, that's the one thing, and I talked about this on my show yesterday. The thing that's wild about the Cleveland Browns, everyone loves to bury the Browns and pick on the Browns. It is very unfortunate that when Cleveland finally figured it out and just got good football dudes, right? Hold on. I'm not done yet. Okay? Good football dudes. David Njoku was one hell of a football dude. Nick Chubb is a football dude. Amari Cooper is a football dude, like very likable guys. And then you probably get the most unlikable quarterback in the entire NFL. And you slap him on this roster. It's very unfortunate that the success of guys like Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper and David Njoku and others has been drowned out because of all the attention that Deshaun Watson gets. So I know as a Browns fan, everyone just says right away, oh, you approve of Deshaun Watson's antics and stuff. And very sports selfishly, I've said, just go in. Win. Right. I don't care. I've made the joke before, when you're younger and they say, show me your friends and they'll show me who your friends are. That'll show me who you are. I've never heard that. Show me who your quarterback is and that'll show me who you are. All right. Deshaun Watson stinks as a human. We all know that. I just need him to be a good quarterback. Okay.
That's fair.
Do I need him to be a good human? No offense. Him being a bad or good human doesn't change my life in any capacity. Okay. I don't sign off or condone what he has done. What I am upset about though is the fact that when it is Deshaun Watson out there, that's all anyone talks about. Amari Cooper has been one of the biggest success stories in Cleveland history, especially since they've returned, but nobody talks about it. It's not a surprise. He deserves this. Everyone wants to use this as a chance to bury the Browns, but I'm here to tell you it's actually a good talking point because it shows that, hey, this isn't just some scrub wide receiver that's just trying to take advantage of the market. He's been one of the biggest leaders that the Browns have had, along with David Njoku and Nick Chubb, as far as that's concerned. Myles Garrett, football dude. All these guys, all their success, all their accomplishments, it gets overlooked because of Deshaun Watson. Amari Cooper, he should hold out. And I do believe Cleveland will get him the money. I do believe they'll get him the money. They have yet to roll over the money of they've yet to roll over the contract of Deshaun Watson. They will. They'll get all that structured. Do you know, is it Jack Duffin? Is that his name? With the Orange and Brown report, I believe. He's like a salary cap aficionado. We're going to get him on.
Oh, cool.
He's very good at just kind of breaking down the salary caps for all the teams and just the different ways that, the cash-rich owners versus the non-cash owners, how they're able to roll stuff over. Cleveland will restructure Deshaun's deal. They'll get a deal done with Amari Cooper. They'll get him that 3-year extension. They'll get him to about that $25 million a year range. He's already at $20 a year. They'll get it done. The Cleveland they've come too far to get to the point to where you're going to let $5 million get in the way of you trying and hoping that Deshaun's healthy enough to go out there and try to run it back for a year. So I think that they get it done. It is a distraction, but good for Amari Cooper because he's been silent. He's been a silent assassin.
Right.
He hasn't gone to social media. He hasn't leaked stuff to the media. First day of mandatory OTAs, and he pieces out. I respect it. I really do. I really do.
I like handling it that way. If you want a new contract and you want to hold out, keep it to yourself. Do your own thing and show up when you feel like you need to show up. And like we just said with Aaron Rodgers, Amari Cooper is very similar. He certainly doesn't need extra practice to be an NFL receiver. He's established himself in the league. He's one of the best in the league, and he has been since he came out of Alabama. So, yeah, I wouldn't really think about that. The one thing I would wonder is, do you still plan on signing Amari Cooper, paying Jerry Jeudy that kind of money? That's a decent contract for a receiver who's never had a 1,000-yard season in his career, taking a pretty big gamble on a guy like Jerry Jeudy. Does that have anything to do with maybe not extending Amari Cooper past this year?
My big view on all of that has always been, look, you do it, yes, because you give him that 3-year extension, you get him that $25 million, you have about that $13 million a year for Jerry Jeudy. But the bottom line is that when it's all said and done, if you head into this season, let's say Cleveland, it just implodes and they just decide, okay, we just got to start this all over again. You think a team's not going to line up to trade for Amari Cooper 1,000 yards? So yes, that's why you do it. You do, because these guys can all be traded. That's why if you're Cleveland, you have a cash-rich owner, you roll over these contracts, you get these contract extensions done. Doesn't mean you're going to be married to them long term. It's what the Rams have done. They have a Super Bowl at least. It's what the Eagles do. They've at least been to a Super Bowl. It's what Cleveland does. Cleveland has one of the best defenses in the NFL, one of the best offensive lines, best running backs, as far as that's concerned, best secondary. Bottom line, not best secondary, but one of the best secondaries. Bottom line is Cleveland has the money to roll over to get this done, and they also have the get-out-of-jail-free card. I know. Relax, folks. As far they may not have used that card already, but nonetheless, I think Cleveland will be just fine. I think they need to get this done and don't let this prolong and head into camp and all that stuff.
I agree.
I don't care about mandatory OTAs though,
Fair
so
enough.
I have no problem. Let me say this about Tee Higgins. To counter this with T. My only problem with Tee Higgins holding out and doing all this stuff is we all know where this is going. There is a 0.0% chance he's a Bengal after this upcoming season, right?
100%.
Okay. So if you know that, and I know that, and we're nobodies, Okay? And, like, let's be clear. It's not happening. Like, you could say, well, there's a chance. There's not. There's no way. Highest paid quarterback in the league. You're going to have the highest paid receiver in the league in Jamar Chase. There's no way you're going to be able. That's $90 million just in those two alone.
Right.
There's no way you're going to have to spend $110 to $15 million for 3 players on one side of the ball with not aging, but I guess like an inconsistent offensive line and still a lot of question marks on defense. Big picture right now,
sure.
the Bengals are good. Big picture though, you got those. It's not happening. So what are you holding out for, T? Because Tee Higgins is going to be at home working out. Tee Higgins is going to be working out, on the side. So if you're already working out and the Bengals are like, oh, you're not showing up to this? Oh, that's fine. Keep working out, though. Can't wait for you're going to be in shape for the season because you're not dumb, right? Like, you know that Super Bowl window is closing as far as your core is concerned, right? So if you're going to be working out, you're going to play this upcoming season because it's $21.5 million guaranteed, so you're foolish to turn that down. And you also know you're not going to be a Bengal after this season. What the hell are you doing? It's different than Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper knows this is his last chance to get this. You know what I mean? Like it's to me, it's different. I don't get what T's doing at this point. Just accept it. You're not a Bengal after this year. Just show up to camp, be the best version of yourself heading into the season. And if it really is about trying to win a Super Bowl one more time or for the first time, but getting back to a Super Bowl, to me, I just think it's silly of Tee Higgins to be sitting out because you don't have leverage. The Bengals aren't like, oh, man, we need to pay him. He's not going to show up. They know he's going to show up because of the $21.5 million guaranteed for the tag. And he's working out. He'll be ready to go for the season. So there's no tug of war going on. It's just, okay, see you week 1.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I don't know that the Bengals care. Like, I know it's a big narrative from everyone else that Tee Higgins isn't here for camp and everything like that, but I think they probably planned on this. This is exactly what happened when they franchise tagged Jesse Bates, but when he wanted a massive contract, he didn't show up for camp. He did show up when it became mandatory. Tee obviously still not here, but until the ball kicks off on week 1, I have 100% confidence that Tee Higgins is a Bengal, and I don't really see any way he doesn't sit out this year. The one thing I will say is I don't think it's a 100% chance that he leaves in free agency next year. The tag is only 120% of the tag this year. It'd be about $28 million for Tee Higgins on a double tag. And then you use that to just unload him in the offseason and get not as much value as you would have gotten this offseason, obviously, because everyone knows you're not going to re-sign him, but get a little bit in return, a mid-round pick, a couple mid-round picks, something like that. I think that definitely is on the table as opposed to just letting T walk for free, but it's definitely not likely. And I think the most likely scenario is he plays this year on a $21 million contract and he walks next year for big money.
So, and Bengals may not get anything back in return, but Burton is the guy that everyone thinks he is, and I thought that was a sneaky good pick. That was a sneaky good pick. I like that pick, but
I love him.
Gamble. It's a gamble, right? Like, because his person. I mean, when people say, "Well, the culture," the Zach Taylor's culture, which I always laugh at that, not the Bengals. I just laugh at anyone. The culture, like you want a good culture, get a good quarterback. Culture,
Start winning
culture.
some games.
Well, look at the Jets. Okay, Aaron Rodgers is on the field last year. They're winning football games. I don't care about his distractions and this, that, and the other. Right. He was a distraction in Green Bay every year, and they won all the damn time. So, to me, get a good quarterback, that's the culture. But for those of you out there who truly believe that the Bengals culture, that'll fix Burton. He played for Kirby Smart, and he played for Nick Saban. If he couldn't figure it out for those two, what is Zach Taylor going to all of a sudden magically do? I think it's going to be fine. I'm not big. I'm just saying. But, like, the excuses of, I think it'll be fine just because he's around better pros, yada, yada. But don't do the Zach Taylor culture thing with me. I'm not going to buy into that. He couldn't play in the culture of a Nick Saban. Much better coach, slightly. Kirby Smart, slightly better, very smart himself. I'm just saying, but we'll see what happens. I do like Burton, talent-wise. If he hits, we might forget all this, Tee Higgins. Actually, if he hits, it might be even more painful to accept that the Bengals got nothing for T when it was all said and done.
Absolutely. if Jermaine Burton comes out this year and can emerge as a solid wide receiver 3 behind T and Jamar, and then obviously when T leaves, if he can take the next step and be a competent number 2. Not trading Tee Higgins this offseason is gonna be something that hurts the Bengals for a long, long time.
All right, Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett, Chatterbox Sports here on YouTube. Grip It and Rip It, Chatterbox Sports' newest show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're going to be joined by Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports and Bucknuts.com, coming up here at 1 o'clock. So I'm excited to kind of chat with him. We'll talk all things college football. We'll talk Big Ten. We'll talk Ohio State. I'm still trying to feel the vibes. Like, I know a lot of the Chatterbox, community, Cincinnati based. I know that here in the city of Cincinnati, obviously, not big Buckeye fans, but there's a lot of Buckeye fans out there. But we're not just going to be talking Ohio State. The one cool thing about working with Jake is he's a big college football fan. So am I. That's one thing that we'll be doing more of on this show versus the other shows is we'll be doing a lot more college football when that time permits. But that's why I thought with the debut of the show today, perfect time to be able to bring on Dave Biddle coming up here shortly as far as that's concerned. Let's see. Continue to go back to the chat. Where are we at with this? Oh, sorry. I know that Jacob right now, he's taking care of something else. So real quick note about Jacob. He's also learning how to produce the show as well. He's not just a host by day. He's a host/producer. And producer extraordinaire, Mr. Casey McAllister, he's kind of showing him all the ropes. What'd you give me the thumbs up for?
We have our guest. He's on and ready to go.
Let me make sure the headset works. Let me make sure that we are good to go. All right. I think the headset is on. We'll see if we'll be able to hear everything. Again, the debut of Grip It and Rip It here at Chatterbox Sports. Portions of the show carried on 1410 ESPN Radio over in Dayton. Let's talk a little college football. Dave Biddle and myself, we go way back to when I started in radio on 1410 Wing AM back in the day. Bucknuts.com, 24/7 Sports. Mr. Dave Biddle, welcome on, sir. Appreciate your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Congrats on the new show, Justin.
Appreciate you coming on. So I can hear Dave. He's coming through loud and clear. Our listeners can. Jake, you can hear him as well, correct?
All good. We're ready to go.
All right. We're ready to rock. Dave, appreciate your time today. Want to start right off the bat with this. I know it's about I think it was 2 weeks ago. Ryan Day sat down with Bobby Carpenter on one of their shows, I believe, and on one of their podcasts or whatever it was. And he brought up the fact that there's so many people that are trying to take shots at Ohio State's successful offseason, right? Like trying to say things like they bought their roster. I'm curious your thoughts. When you heard that Ryan Day was a little bothered by the fact that he doesn't like the idea that people are trying to water down the success of the offseason, saying that they bought the roster, if you will, just kind of your thoughts on that when it comes to the new days of college football. Obviously, you have to spend money to win in today's climate, but were you surprised that Ryan Day was adamant that he was bothered by that notion?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I did find it interesting, though, because, and it makes sense to me because his rationale is like no one was saying this, about like Georgia, when they were like knocking it out with NIL or Alabama or even Michigan, they did a good job, really. And NIL was a big part of this, of retaining their players, which is a huge reason they won the national championship. And Ohio State did a great job with that as well. Then what did they do? They're able to bring in some transfers like Caleb Downs. But without Saban retiring, that doesn't happen. And you had guys like Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs as well, from my understanding. Yeah, they're getting good NIL deals at Ohio State, but they were probably offered more by a couple of other programs. I'm not sure if it was Miami or Texas A&M, but some of those that have been throwing a lot of money at kids. I'm told that some of these kids at Ohio State actually took a lesser deal to come to Ohio State. So I can see why Ryan Day is, a little bit, I don't know if offended, a little bit bothered by that.
Well, the thing that's interesting about that too, Dave, is like when we talk. So interesting point you just brought up, the fact that they took less money. Some of them potentially did, or less NIL packages to come to Ohio State. The bottom line is, with a lot of these athletes, they're going to get that money one way or another. So the idea that Ohio State gave them something that nobody else would is also kind of wild. And in the new climate, my thing is this: is as a fan, talking to Buckeye fans or any college football fans out there when it comes to their respective program, that's a good thing. If Ohio State had the NIL funds to be able to put and retain a roster, which was key, but add more depth and add more pieces, that's a good thing. That's the name of the game now. I know we're used to the old days of it feels icky talking about teams spending money on players, but that's just the reality of it right now. I have no issue with it. I'd much rather be talking about a athletics department that bought this football roster as opposed to the athletic departments out there who can't sport an NIL collective that can afford to put together a national championship contender.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You better embrace it this day and age, or you're going to get left behind. And we're still talking about Ohio State. It'd be one thing like when Texas A&M rises up and has the number one class in the country, which didn't actually work out well for them, or another smaller school back when Ole Miss, relative to Ohio State, when Ole Miss signed the number one class in the country and stuff like that. That just doesn't feel right. Ohio State, even before NIL, was landing top classes. They've never landed the number one class in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. They've landed the number two class 6 times. this might be the year they land the number 1 class. But yeah, you better embrace it. And what's funny, Justin, is Ohio State was a little bit behind the curve when NIL first kicked off, so to speak. Texas A&M was kind of, dominating, in Miami. They were, they still are. Miami's still throwing a lot of money at kids. And Ohio State is too. The collectives are doing a really good job. But Ohio State was behind the curve. Now, if anything, they're ahead of the curve. So they've done a good job not just catching up. But it's not just the money. You're selling the Ohio State brand plus the money. And the idea that these kids, especially if you're a wide receiver, if the money's at least right, where would you rather go as a wide receiver than to have Brian Hartline develop you and play in an offense where even Kyle McCord put up good stats last year because you're playing in a Ryan Day offense. So it's twofold. They're doing a good job on the NIL front for sure, but they've always recruited well. So it's the Ohio State brand plus, the money is right.
Dave Biddle with us here. If you're just tuning in on the Chatterbox Sports YouTube channel, of course, this interview will also be re-aired later on 1410 ESPN Radio on the Kinner and Kev Show. Dave Biddle, again, 24/7 Sports, Bucknuts.com, talking all things Ohio State football, college football, hanging out with us here on the debut of Grip It and Rip It here this afternoon. Dave, one thing that Jacob and I were talking about earlier, and just me and anyone really that works in sports media, and I think you can attest to this, it's kind of wild, like when you think of the content calendars for us in years past, like what are the main talking points, or what are some of the things that we're really talking about at this time of year? It's kind of wild with the transfer portal and NIL, with all the negative stuff that comes with it, is from the talking points. Selfishly, from a sports talk perspective, it's kind of prolonged, like especially the college basketball season. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking like usually national championship in March, it's done, maybe a coaching change or two, and then we're done. But the fact that like there's so many headlines out there surrounding NIL and obviously the transfer portal, even though it's closed, but decisions being made by stars. Curious from your perspective, working in this industry as long as you have, what do you feel? How do you like all the extra content that comes along with all the extra storylines that surrounds college athletics, especially from a college basketball perspective?
Yes, from just a media perspective, I do like it. I also can see why fans don't like it. But yeah, just from like the perspective of doing our jobs, it gives us more to talk about, and it's intriguing. And we'll always be able to say we covered like this when it all, when it all happened. We were at the start of NIL. We got to see all these changes and the transfer portal, and you don't have to sit out a year any longer. I mean, all these rules that we just grew up with, and people that are older than us that it just was embedded in college sports for, I don't know, as long as anybody can remember. All of a sudden there's been such massive change, and so that part's interesting in itself to me. And then yes, you're right, Justin, it does give us a lot to talk about. Just look at Ohio State's basketball roster. I mean, they brought in like 4 or 5 transfers. They had about 4 or 5 guys transfer out. I mean, you and I both follow Wright State basketball. You do a great job announcing Wright State basketball. They had guys transfer out. They brought in a bunch of transfers as well. Obviously, they have a new coach, so that plays into that. But still, yeah, I mean, Ohio State basically has a new coach too, even though Diebler finished out the year as the coach. So it does make things interesting. And it's funny, like when people were talking about Dan Hurley not taking the Lakers job, I heard somebody say, I can't believe he's staying at UConn with the transfer portal, having to deal with all that stuff. It's like, did you see his team this last year? A lot of those guys he got from the transfer portal. Like, he works the transfer portal better than anybody. So yeah, it's I can see why some fans don't like all the changes. I totally see that. But me personally, yes, Justin, I'm with you, man. I like it.
I forgot to bring this up. I know our paths didn't cross, but last week we were set up at the Memorial. I know you got a chance to do your show for the Fan in Columbus from the Memorial. How was that? How was that your first Memorial experience, or was that your first experience at least just working the shows out there?
That's my first time ever on the grounds. Wow. People don't believe me when I say it. I'm going to miss the looks on people's face when I tell them that, especially living in Columbus as long as I have, being a huge sports guy. But I've just recently, it's still not my favorite sport by any means, or even in my top 3, but just over the last 5-10 years, I've really gotten into being like a golf fan. Like, I enjoy watching the majors. I'll be into the U.S. Open for sure. It was super cool being out there, man. Like, I'm so glad I had never been out there before, because that was a perfect way, I thought, for me to do my first time out there. It was a beautiful day. All 4 days, the weather was nice. We got so lucky being out there at Jack's course, who's just, as we all know, a huge part of Columbus, and the greatest major champion ever, in my opinion, the greatest golfer ever. You can make the argument for Tiger, I get that, but to me, Jack's the greatest, and he's. It was just special being out there and be able to do a show. My first time out there, that was cool, and then be able to walk around and seeing all this stuff. And wasn't able to get a milkshake, so I had to wait till afterwards. I had Scheffler, I had a little money on Scheffler, so that was cool too. I have to wait after he won. I went and got a victory milkshake down at the local ice cream spot because we couldn't get in the players' lounge. to steal one of those famous milkshakes that Jack gets for the players, which I think is a really cool tradition, by the way. That Jack had like the one tournament where players get milkshakes and only the players can get them. You can't buy them. The public can't buy them. Just the players get them. I think that's one of the many, many really cool little side plots about the memorial. So it was really cool being out there, Justin.
Well, yeah, especially for Scheffler. I mean, his last outing, he got one phone call, and here he got at least the milkshake. So, I mean, it's kind of a much better deal than the last time he was out there. You know, with the name of the show, Grip It and Rip It, people thought, you know, and I see why. They thought it was a golf show. And I said, well, we didn't talk a lot of golf when we were at the Memorial. Let's just be honest. But there's just something about
thinking baseball. I was thinking it sounded baseball. Yeah, like a baseball pitcher. You grip it and rip it. Right?
That's our new counter. That's our.
I love that.
That's our new counter. No doubt about it. Hey, someone just messaged into the show talking about one of the biggest things that their takeaway from the offseason that they still think is wild is Ryan Day giving up the play calling. Trying to bring it back to Ohio State football quick. Just your thoughts. Like, I mean, from a fan perspective, sometimes we don't really notice things, or when things aren't going well offensively, we right away blame the play caller. But you know, next year when Ohio State's offense is just a little bit more efficient, is that going to be because Ryan Day gave up the play calling duties, or because they buttoned up a couple of their holes on offense? It sounds weird saying that, of course, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah, it's, you know, Ryan Day's a very good play caller, but this is going to help him because, we'll get to Chip Kelly and why that's the main reason. But Ryan Day's a really good play caller. It's just he has too much on his plate, way too much on his plate to be the head coach, be the play caller. I mean, the list of successful head coaches who are also coordinators is pretty short. It's not, you know, non-existent, but most successful head coaches delegate and have an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator that they allow to, while the head coach is always going to dabble in one side of the ball or the other, pretty much allows his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinators to do their jobs. I'm talking about the vast majority of good coaches, not all. So that's one thing. It's allowing Ryan Day to step back and be more of a CEO. That's huge. Then you're bringing in Chip Kelly, and like, Chip Kelly had fallen off as a head coach. There's no argument against that. He had fallen off as a head coach. But as an offensive coordinator, to bring him here as an offensive coordinator, we'll see. The proof will be in the pudding, Justin. But I think we're going to look back on that as a pretty big coup for Ohio State, because for the first time since he was an assistant at Oregon, he can just now, which is when he made his name for himself, that he can just sit back and be an offensive coordinator for the first time. He's been a head coach ever since then. So he's able to just sit back, be an offensive coordinator. So it's twofold for them. It takes stuff off Ryan Day's plate. He's still going to be heavily involved in the offense, but he doesn't have to be the play caller now. There's an adult in the room. And I don't mean that as a slight against any of the coaches. I mean that, you know, not literally, but certainly figuratively, that last year it felt like there wasn't an adult in the room after they lost Kevin Wilson on the offensive coaching staff. You had Ryan Day, and then you had a bunch of guys who seemed like they were like on the come up, you know, like Hartline, Justin Fry. All these guys were kind of young. And now you have, and Kevin Wilson was that the previous years, that Ryan Day had that adult in the room. They lost that. Now they have it with Chip Kelly for sure. And I think when he was hired, people almost reacted like they're bringing him here as head coach. It's like, cause I think some people weren't very excited about it. Over time, I think fans have gotten really excited about it. And I think that's the right approach. Again, we'll find out. But I think Chip Kelly's going to have a big impact on this team this year.
You know, when people bring that up, Dave, it's interesting because people are like, oh, man, he's going to be looking over his shoulder. Look, it's a high-pressure job no matter who the offensive coordinator is or whatever big-name coach is on your staff. But, I mean, do you see a scenario if the offense does kind of sputter at times, which just sounds even weird questioning that, but if it does, is there a scenario at all where you are concerned where the Chip Kelly noise starts to pick up a little bit?
I would not be. No, not at all. I would not be. I mean, they wouldn't. If the offense goes off the rails, it would have to completely go off the rails for Chip Kelly to get fired. And for Ryan Day to get fired and then for them to replace Ryan with Chip, that doesn't make any sense because that would mean the season's not going well. And Chip has fallen off as a head coach anyway, like I was saying. So, no, I'm pretty confident it's going to work out well. The only time I've seen anything like that completely went off the rails as far as a coordinator at Ohio State mid-season was, of course, Kerry Combs. Never seen anything like that where he literally was demoted after the Oregon game, speaking of Oregon. He was demoted, and it's not like they had like a really good choice to take over as D coordinator. Matt Barnes, who was also in over his head, just not as bad as Kerry Combs as it turned out. Kerry Combs, great recruiter, great man, great DB coach. Peter principle in full effect, though. He was way over his head as a defensive coordinator. So, no, I think it's going to work out well. Chip Kelly, of course, was Ryan Day's mentor. He was his offensive coordinator when Ryan Day was a quarterback at New Hampshire. They both went to the same high school, too. They didn't go together at the same time. Another famous person that went to their high school, Adam Sandler. They're in Manchester, New Hampshire, Manchester Central. Adam Sandler, and you got Ryan Day, and you got Chip Kelly, all graduates of that high school. So that's pretty cool. So no, man, I think it's gonna work out well with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. They have that previous relationship. Chip Kelly's that proven offensive genius, I'll call him, and I think it's going to be a good marriage. We shall see.
Dave Biddle with us here. Last thing, I appreciate you giving us time today, Dave. One thing I was thinking about, because I saw this graphic that kind of popped up about Florida's schedule this upcoming season. It's the toughest 5 week stretch for them. They have to play, Georgia, at Texas, LSU. They got to play, Ole Miss and Florida State. I mean, presumably all top 25 opponents as far as that's concerned. Then you look at, Michigan's schedule. You look at Texas, USC. They got to play Washington at Washington. You got to play, Oregon, and then of course Ohio State. I mean, with the consolidation of a lot of these, conferences, if you will, or at least these, big programs joining these conferences, you're going to get mega schedules like this. But you see a schedule like Florida's, you see a schedule like Michigan's. Is it surprising that some of these teams are keeping some of these bigger programs in their non-conference? Like, for instance, Michigan's still keeping Texas on the schedule. It's too late to back out of that now. But do you expect to see less of these mega non-conference matchups when you see some of these super schedules that are out there like Florida and Michigan's?
Yes, because Ohio State always majored in. They wanted one major, no pun intended, majored in it, and they wanted one major game. But seriously, and look at their schedule this year, Justin. There's no major game on there, and Marshall's the marquee non-conference opponent. And Marshall's a good, solid, little football program, but that's your marquee non-conference slate. You got a pretty easy non-conference slate. Now, Ohio State's intra-conference slate is no joke. Having to go to Oregon, who right now is favored over Ohio State by a point. Who everybody has as the second, favorite to win the Big Ten behind Ohio State is Oregon. You have to go to Oregon, tough place to play. That'll be interesting, especially with the Chip Kelly effect. Another interesting sidebar there. Going to Penn State, as we all know, is never easy for Ohio State. I know James Franklin's 1-9 against Ohio State. I know that, but still, it's never easy over there, especially if it's a night game and it's a whiteout. We know, and Penn State's going to be talented. And then Michigan here. But they also play, a lot of people have Iowa ranked as the 5th team in the Big Ten, 6th at the worst, I think is what I've seen. And Ohio State also has to play Iowa. But yeah, I think we're going to see less teams, to your question, schedule these marquee out-of-conference matchups because they're getting so many marquee intra-conference matchups. And I can't remember who it is now. I'd have to think about it. There is a team, one of the teams that LSU's playing tried to get out of play. It might have been Florida. It might have been, well, no, it couldn't have been Florida because they're both SEC. There was a team that tried to get out of play in LSU. I can't remember who it is. So, yeah, it somewhat surprises me that Michigan didn't try and get out of playing Texas or vice versa because the rest of their conference or the rest of their schedule is so tough. But I do think, to answer your question, we will see teams pair back, if not completely do without those marquee matchups early in the year. And that'll be too bad for all of us, fans, media. I'm both a college football fan and I work in the media. I think you would classify yourself as that as well, Justin. So, yeah, it's not good for us. But, yeah, that's probably – I guess the trade-off is we're getting the 12-team playoff. So there we go.
You just get them on the back end. Like you look at Ohio State, 2025, 2026, 7 and 8. I mean, so you got Texas next year at the Shoe, at Texas in 26. Then Alabama in 27 at the Shoe, and then at Alabama in 28. What's the likelihood that all 4 of those games get played? What's the likelihood that Ohio State does play Texas and Alabama in those series over the next 4 years?
I hope it happens. I don't think Ohio State, like I said, is going to schedule those games going forward. But I don't think they're going to try and back out of the games on the schedule. Here's why. Yeah, because first of all, they don't want to look like weak. And second of all, with the 12-team playoff, it gives you leeway. It gives you, even though the Big Ten is going to be a lot tougher now, adding Oregon and Washington and USC, and it's not going to be any tougher adding UCLA, but whatever. It's still going to be tougher. So you're going to have some leeway. If you're 9-3 Ohio State and your losses are to Alabama and let's say Oregon and Penn State or something, and you're sitting there and those teams are all ranked in the top, and you're sitting there at 9-3, you're probably still going to get in. You're definitely going to get in at 10-2 if you're Ohio State. So it gives you more leeway. I could be wrong. I won't be surprised. And it could be the other team that tries to pull out. Who knows? Or they both agree, let's just not do this. But I tend to think those games against Texas and Alabama will get played. I really hope I hope all of them get played. I especially hope the games against Alabama get played because we haven't had that. I don't think they played in the season opener, the kickoff classic when I was a real little kid in the 80s, like mid-80s, late 80s. But having it home and home with Alabama would be really cool. It's cool with Texas too, but we've been there, done that, right? Yeah. So I hope all 4 of those games get played. I think they will.
This is the last thing. I apologize. This is my last thing because you brought up a good point about the 12-team playoff. I am curious. So, like with the 14 playoff, you get a loss, your season's hanging on by an inch, depending on the strength of your schedule moving forward. 2 games pretty much guaranteed you're out of the playoff. 3, there was just no way. What do you think that new magic number is going to be? Like, I've talked about this, the regular season potentially being watered down. You lose a game, everyone freaks out. Now you can lose a game, it's no big deal. You can maybe lose 2 games and it's no big deal. What do you think that magic number is going to be? For 4, it was 2. For 12, it's what? What's that magic number that you're eliminated from, that there's just no way that they'll let a 4 or a 3-loss team into the playoff? Is it still 2? Is it 3? What do you think it's going to be?
4 would be you have no chance. Like I said earlier, if you're a 3-loss team and you're one of the powers and all 3 of your losses, let's say, are close, you're still not. You're in trouble with 3. 2, if you're like Ohio, if you're 10-2, Ohio State, you're getting in. 10-2, LSU, you're getting in. 10-2, Georgia, you're getting in. Period. In a 12-team playoff, in my opinion. 10-2, Michigan, you're getting in. 10-2, Penn State, you're getting in. 10-2, Oregon. Okay, 3 losses, then you're in danger, but you have a chance. Okay, if the scenario is you're 9-3, but your 3 losses are all against teams that, let's say, are in the top 10 or at least ranked. And all 3, you played those games well, and you at least have a couple other quality wins on your schedule. So if you lost to Oregon, let's say but Ohio State beat Michigan, lost to Penn State, but beat a good USC team, something like that, where you still have to have quality wins. So I wouldn't rule out a 3. In fact, I bet we'll see a 3-loss team make it this year. I bet there'll be at least 1. We'll see a 3-loss team make it. 4, you have no chance. And if you're a powerhouse and you have 2 losses, you're probably in.
And we all know that always, especially an SEC team, Big Ten team, probably get a little bit more leeway. That ACC may not get as much leeway because, obviously the amount of good teams in the conference. It'll differ by year. But you're right. 4, that would be kind of wild to see that, no doubt. Dave Biddle, Bucknuts.com, 24/7 Sports. Dave, appreciate you giving us time and joining us on the first show here. Love talking college football with you. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Hey, congratulations on the show. Happy to do it. Thanks, Justin.
All right, good stuff. Again, talking all things college football, Ohio State. That interview, again, will be repurposed on the radio side over on 1410 ESPN Radio. Jake, people are accusing me of bullying you and blocking you out. Did I box you? I could take these off now. Did I box you out? Just so people know, I was not big time in Jake over here. Is it Jake or Jacob? What do people call you?
I can rock with either. I'm not picky.
But seriously, is it Jake, Jacob? I mean,
let's go with Jacob. Let's just stick with Jacob.
You that works. Like Jake, did you? Jake,
that works.
It
no,
is.
All right, Jake. If I have to pick one, I'll rock with Jacob.
You're good. So I texted Jacob off to the side, said, hey, we good, because our first time doing this show together, trying to figure out the new camera angles, all this stuff. I did not big time my guy Jacob over here.
No, not at all, not at all. Justin texted me, asked if I had any questions to ask, but this is my second day ever at the computer, first time doing an interview without Casey. I wanted to focus in and make sure everything was good, and it looked like it was.
You have the look of oh shit constantly. Well, so like we're all right. You're freaking out over there from time to time.
Little bit.
What's the holdup? What are you nervous about over there? First show, it's all behind the scenes stuff.
I know how to do everything, and it's all working fine. I'm just worried I'm going to mess something up at some point.
As if we couldn't respect Casey even more, does your appreciation for him go up even more?
I don't know if it can get any higher than it is right now.
Shout out to Casey McAllister, by the way, who's at times people haven't even noticed. He's been kind of sneaking in, slithering through the back, getting Jacob caught up over here. But no, you're doing a good job. That would be hard too. So when I in Dayton, the gigantic station that is 1410 ESPN Radio, I mean, so many producers, so much help that we have. We don't. I have to run the board and the recordings and set up the interview. I have to, so I feel your pain. It is nice just sitting behind a desk doing nothing though.
Well, there you go. I'm glad you can take a little break here.
I also realize I'm the old guy. Like, you're 22?
22.
20. I'm 34, dude.
Well,
34.
Look at that. Age is just a number. We're all good.
Yep. Nonetheless, good stuff from Dave Biddle. Good, the 12-team playoff obviously is we're embarking on that. And I'm curious, people, one thing I meant to ask him too was about Notre Dame. I do think that this is going to impact Notre Dame at some point because with them not being in a conference, it's very easy for them to put some of these teams, or for these teams to put Notre Dame on the schedule. I have no clue why you would put, if you're in Alabama, a Texas, an Ohio State, if you are an LSU, Georgia, anybody. And I got to look at what Notre Dame's schedule looks like for coming years. I don't know if they announced that. I don't know if that's a year by year thing. I don't know how
their schedule this year. Their schedule this year is a joke. They open week 1 in College Station against A&M, which could be a good game. That's exciting. The rest of their schedule is an absolute joke. Notre Dame has the best odds of any Power 5. I guess they're not Power 5, but of any team in college football. Jimmy's looking through the window.
Are these walls thin over here?
He's getting nervous. But, yeah, they have the best odds of any team in college football to go undefeated, and I don't think anyone actually views Notre Dame as a national title contender. So that just tells you what their schedule is.
So, but, like, that's the thing. If, like, I know, like, Ohio State, they just wrapped up that series with Notre Dame. I mean, Ryan Day has a lot of fans in Notre Dame right now, you know.
Yeah.
Lou Holtz.
Lou Holtz in particular.
Yeah, in particular. I wonder if he ever found him. But the bottom line is like, that, like, I don't know the next time we'll see Ohio State and Notre Dame play in a regular season game. And I don't think Ohio State should ever put them on the schedule. Notre Dame has always driven me nuts. I don't want to upset our guy out here. But, like, they have been bailed out so many times. Get in the conference. I know that's an old take. It's a tired take. But get in the damn conference. You know, during COVID, I was so pissed when the ACC bailed them out. That was an opportunity for conferences to look at them and say, you join our conference, moving forward, you'll get to play college football in 2020. Right. And if you don't, oh, well, go to Mass. Like that's the thing. Like, so I was so mad at the ACC when they bailed them out that year.
Yeah, and how much better was that season of Notre Dame football?
Yeah.
I mean, you have the memorable game against Clemson when TJ Uiagalelei stepped in for Trevor Lawrence and played well. And it seems like there's more regular season memories from that one season they played in the ACC. Obviously, they were a playoff team that year, so that lends itself to it. But their whole brand of being independent and everything, obviously that NBC contract is just massive. But you're hurting the sport of college football. I think these new rules might force them to do that because the highest they can be, even at 12-0, is the 5th seed.
That's the peak.
They can't be a top 4 seed. They can't host a home game, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy that they're still not in a conference and that they found a way around it with the expanded playoff. I mean, forever talking about expanding the playoff past 4. It was talked about the conference champions would have the automatic bid, which they still do, but it was talked about that you would have to be in a conference to get in a playoff any bigger than 4. Obviously, that no longer the case, and they're going to be able to squeeze in there at 5, playing whatever schedule they want.
You know what's wild about Notre Dame, too? So they made the playoffs twice in that little run, right? And they never won a conference championship. For one, they're not in a conference. But the ironic part of it is, so they made the playoff, not in a conference one year. And then the year, that 2020 year when they made the playoff, that COVID year when they were in the ACC, the ironic part about that is, because everyone gives them crap because they don't play in a conference championship, they lose the conference championship and still make the playoff that year.
Ridiculous.
Like, very wild. But the point about Notre Dame is this, is I feel like they've always been bailed out because the ACC, that's how I knew the ACC is weak. That's how I knew that their days were numbered, because they actually felt they didn't have the leverage to look at a school that would have not have been able to play.
Right.
If it wasn't for them, because for clarity, I don't know if you guys remember this, during that COVID season, everyone went conference only.
Right.
Well, when you were an independent, you were kind of SOL. I'll never forgive the ACC for bailing them out. I'm repeating myself, but it ticks me off to this day because they had the leverage. It was either you sit out and lose, like, because, you know, a lot of teams lost money technically, but they were going to lose even more money not having a season at all.
For sure.
So to me, the ACC screwed up with that, okay? Good for Notre Dame for getting bailed out as far as that's concerned. Second point is this. When you're loading up your schedule with Ohio State and Michigan and these Big Ten teams, you have to play USC, you have to play Ohio State, you have to play Penn State, you have to play Michigan, all right? You have to play these really good teams. Why would I challenge myself in the non-conference? I'm not. I'm not going to risk picking up another loss. You don't need to. There's absolutely no point in doing it. I talked about that Florida schedule, all right? Florida this year has to play Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and at Florida State. They don't even have to, that Florida State game, I would just take that off. Well, like, when you, and take Florida State out of it, but like that's, I mean, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, SEC teams, to me, if I'm Florida, I'm not putting a Florida State again in the non-conference. I'm not challenging myself in the non-conference. So what that means for Notre Dame is I think a lot of teams are going to keep, to Dave Biddle's point, no one wants to look weak and take teams off the schedule.
Right.
So they're going to play out probably the remaining contracts over the next 4, 5, 6 years. But after that, I would not put any tough team in the non-conference. Michigan started that trend last year. And if, you know, like I said, that could be bad for Notre Dame as far as any of the premier powers. You might get the middle of the pack Big Ten and SEC teams that might put them on. But overall, is Notre Dame ever going to have that premier regular season win? I don't see where that's coming. And I mean, like, in the next couple of years, I don't see how scheduling them makes any sense as far as that's concerned.
There's no incentive anymore. The incentive used to be schedule a good non-conference, and then if, 4 or 5 teams have one loss and you have better non-conference wins, you get the nod to go to the 14 playoff. Now you're just giving yourself a chance to lose another game. And you just asked Dave Biddle that question, how many losses keep you out of this playoff? Because 2 losses kept you out of the 14 playoff. Well, his number was 4. So why would you even give yourself a chance to get to that fourth loss by playing a hard non-conference schedule? If you're, Penn State, who seemingly goes 10-2 every single year, losing to Ohio State and Michigan, and now you can finally make the playoff with that record, why would you ever give yourself a chance to lose a third or a fourth game when you can just schedule, with all due respect, the MAC or the Mountain West or the Sun Belt or any of those other smaller schools that obviously they benefit more from playing those non-conference games. That pays for all their non-profit sports. Like three non-conference games for a school like that will pay for, a whole baseball season and a whole, women's basketball season and stuff like that. So, these small schools are going to benefit from this greatly, but there's quite literally zero incentive anymore to schedule a hard non-conference.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, for Ohio State coming up, so this year they're non-conference, Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, okay, whatever. But starting next season in 25, Texas at the Shoe, at Texas in 26, okay? Then they welcome in Alabama to the Shoe in 27, and then they're at Alabama in 28, Nevada and Charlotte in 29, but in 2030 they start that series with Georgia. They'll be at Georgia and then welcome in Georgia in 2031. So, I mean, I get Dave's point. To me, I wouldn't play Texas. I wouldn't play Alabama. I wouldn't play Georgia at all from Ohio State. To me, there's just no point.
Would you cancel those?
But you can't. You can't look weak, to Dave's point.
Right.
So these games, to that point, I was like, there's no way these games get played. But from that perspective, yeah, they're going to get played.
If you're Ross Bjork, the new AD at Ohio State, do you just call Alabama and say, hey, neither of us want to play this game. No one has to cancel it. Let's just mutually let it disappear from the schedule. Do you even give them a ring, see if that's on the table?
Look, but the bottom line is, though, here's the other thing. Ross Bjork's a businessman.
For sure.
Alabama coming to the Shoe, you don't necessarily really want to kick that off, right? Texas coming to the Shoe, Georgia coming to the Shoe. Now, I know that's, it's 2024, so that's 6 years from now, But, I tell you what, though, I can't wait for that Nevada and Charlotte in 2029.
Maybe you get Akron at night again.
Oh, yeah, the Shoe at night. It doesn't get any better as far as that's concerned. But, so Grip It and Rip It, newest show here on Chatterbox Sports. Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett. We were joking today. Didn't realize it rhymed. Grip It and Rip It with Kinner and Tissett. There you go.
When you texted me that you came up with that name,
and I didn't.
I thought you got the rhyme. Like I thought that was why you did it.
That was on accident.
Read it out loud. We were in here setting up for Off the Bench. Read it out loud to the fellas, and they all approved. They thought it was great. They thought you were a comedic genius with your rhyming ability, and then you follow it up that you didn't even realize it rhymed until you figured it out. And you got to get better at taking credit for stuff when it's easy, because you could have easily taken credit for that and just said, hey, I rhymed it. I did it on purpose. There was no reason to be truthful there.
Oh, well. Yeah, you dribble and you shoot. You hope for the best. Can people see this in the background?
There's no net. There's no net.
Oh, that's too bad. I was going to try and show off my athletic prowess over here. And just like in real life, I can't reach the rim as far as that's concerned. But nonetheless. All right, so anything else on college football before we close the book there? So we're big college football guys.
For sure.
We'll be talking some college football a lot, especially as we get closer. I know, what's that? The college football magazine, Phil Steele, his college football preview. I mean, literally every NFL team, well, same thing. Every Division I college football program, he sits down with every coach, and he has, the print is like this tiny. It's pretty badass what he does. Awesome. And so that comes out every year. He's one of the most popular names out there for off-season football coverage. So we'll have him on the show here in the coming weeks, because I believe they just sent that to print. So that'll be coming out here shortly as far as that's concerned. There's the last thing on the college football thing I did want to bring up. I got to find it real quick. So
there was one thing that popped up that I wanted to talk about college football-wise as well. A couple days ago, I believe it's official that Army-Navy will no longer be a standalone game. That game's been standalone for as long as I can remember, the week after the conference championship, or I guess the week before the conference championships. A marquee event for everyone in the country, regardless of how those two teams are playing. No longer a standalone event. The Camellia Bowl will be played on the same day. So I know you're not a bowl season guy. I don't know if you're an Army-Navy guy, but that not being standalone really rocked my world, at least for a little bit.
We've talked about this. We talked about this at the Memorial. I'm not a bowl season guy. You're an addict.
I am an addict.
You're an addict.
That's
You're a
the way I would
bowl season
describe it.
guy. Now, I always feel bad with the Army-Navy game because I feel un-American. I feel as un-American when I say I don't watch that game as when I made the old war veteran mad at the memorial for saluting with the wrong hand. I don't think I've ever felt more un-American than that day. And when that game comes around, if it's you watching the big game, like there's a big game today.
Yes,
Army Navy.
7-5 Army versus 6-6 Navy.
To be fair, I mean I always take us in world wars and stuff. Like
Fair.
I mean I'm Team USA there. You know,
That's what matters.
I don't know what people. It just sets you up. It's like when you're talking women's sports. If you don't like compliment and say nice things, you're a horrible person. So
That is how it works.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know how controversial you guys get over here, but
we try our best.
I'll toe the line from time to time as far as that's concerned. Last thing on the college football front, because I finally found it. There you go. On 3, they put out their preseason college football playoff projected 12-team playoff field.
Ooh.
Yeah. New content. This is that. It's June, folks. This is the stuff
We're
we
in
do.
the heat of football season.
You want to know? Like, by the way, no, I'll talk. I'm really annoyed with Bengals media.
Okay.
Why do you guys care if Joe Burrow picked up piano lessons in the offseason? Why are you guys so creepily obsessed with that guy? Be obsessed
We had a
with.
segment on Off the Bench about Joe Burrow's piano today.
Shocker. Shocker.
We want him to play Runaway when the team runs out. If he hops on the piano, ding, ding, I think it'd be pretty good. I want to keep Welcome to the Jungle, but I think Joe Burrow on piano for the run out would be pretty good.
So with everything that's going on in this offseason for the Cincinnati Bengals, I actually see professional media members tweet out, Joe Burrow just said he picked up playing piano in the offseason. He's even picked up a few jingles. That was a tweet. Those were multiple tweets from professional, respected media members, but they only do it in their defense because of people like you.
That's fair.
Because you like it.
That's fair. I'm not going to act like I'm anything not.
Now, just because I don't care what my quarterback does in the offseason doesn't mean that you guys don't, apparently.
Yeah, the Browns don't have the ability to talk about Deshaun Watson's offseason activities.
To be fair, it's kind of uncomfortable talking about Deshaun Watson's offseason activities versus Joe
Yeah.
Burrow's. Maybe if he was picking up piano lessons, he would have less time to get in trouble.
Maybe so.
But nonetheless, my ADD kicked in there. 12-team college football playoff field according to On3. These are the playoff matchups. So it's 4 seeds. So Ohio State, the 1 seed.
Wow.
Georgia, the 2. Florida State, 3. Kansas State, 4.
Okay, well, important to remember. I'm sure a lot of people in the chat will be like, no, Kansas State's not going to be a top 4 team
A lot
in the
of
country.
Kansas State fans in the
Kansas
chat.
State could be ranked 11 and get the 4 seed if they're the 4th highest ranked conference champion. So you have to remember that that's how that, goes as well. But yeah, I don't hate that. I think Kansas State's going to be pretty good this year. I forget the quarterback's name. I'm blanking, but he has the long blonde hair. He came in after the Martinez brothers graduated after their, 20-year stint in college football between Nebraska and Kansas State. But he's a good player. They have some really exciting pieces on that team. They could definitely win a very weak Big 12. I mean, I think Colorado is the consensus pick to win that now. And I don't know how you feel about Deion and the boys out in Boulder, but I don't think they have a chance.
Are we
to
rolling
win that
with
division.
Deion?
No, I don't think they have a chance.
So they
to
won't
win
be
that
hard
division.
to find? They'll be at the top? Is that what you're saying?
They'll be easy to find at the bottom
At the
of
bottom.
Big 12
Oh, okay.
standings.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not buying in. I'm a big Deion guy. I liked the way Colorado was trending. I loved, for anyone out there that was angry at Colorado, I was more angry at Colorado the last 2 months of the season than the first month. That was like the funnest storyline in college football last year.
Absolutely.
That like Colorado games, it was wild. Like it felt big time. You had the celebrities on the sideline. You had Deion, who was just shutting people up left and right. I'm pulling for him. I want it to work. There was a part of me that wanted to see a different approach to college football a little bit. Like I kind of wanted to see that work. Let's be clear. Let's be very he's just not getting the best of the best. But like what Dan Hurley does, and I'm not comparing the two, but like Dan Hurley went all transfer portal to build his national championship, his second straight national championship team. And he's he wins, so that's why. But I mean, it's not, and again, different sports, much different roster sizes. It's viewed completely differently. But Colorado, if you think that they have the NIL or if you think that they have the collectives to go win out on the recruiting trail, for people to get mad at how out there Deion is, that's because that's all they have. Right. I still think Deion would be big time at a bigger school.
I don't disagree with that.
I think Deion is Deion because he has to be, because they don't have the NIL collectives to outbid Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama. Like, I think when he's doing that obnoxious stuff that he does, that's the salesmanship of him, because Ryan Day's very quiet. Right? Kirby's smart. These coaches, they're quiet all off on the sideline, right? Like when Ohio State announces their big recruits, when Alabama, all these, you're not seeing their head coaches.
No.
Right? Because they don't have to, because they're collective, because they're assistants. The bottom line is Colorado doesn't have all of that. So Deion has to do the Twitter videos. He has to do the I ain't hard to find. He has to do all of that. it's not going to work in Colorado. They will it will blow up in their face, and it will not work this year. But the thing is, I just still think that even if it blows up in his face, I still think Deion gets an opportunity out of Florida State or somewhere big. I still think he has another big opportunity coming up, but we'll see. I don't think he's Colorado's coach after this upcoming season.
Wow. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I think they're taking some big steps to improve. I don't think they're going to be as bad as they are last year.
You wouldn't take it that far. You have to agree with me. No. So you don't. No, you think that they?
I don't think they're going to be good this year. I think their ceiling is probably 6-6, 7-5, make a bowl game. But I don't think they're going to fire him. I think what he's doing in Colorado is, this might sound crazy to say, but I think it's more important than winning games. He's putting the Colorado brand on the map. He's bringing in guys like Warren Sapp to coach the defense. We'll see if this works, but I think he's going to get more than a 2-year runway to see if it does.
I'm like Shanae Agumake. I'm going to say I can't put the integrity of the sport above the marketing approach, but I agree with you. I agree. Technically, you're right, but it's whether Deion wants to stay there and keep losing.
Absolutely.
His brand takes a hit from that. So you're right. Colorado.
I don't think they're going to fire him.
I think who was in the chat right here? I think Sean Connor. What up, Sean? He says Colorado over-under. The over-under for them is 5.5 wins.
I think that's a perfect line. Bowl game, not bowl game. I think that's a perfect line for Colorado.
That's crap, dude. You're saying
they're
that's
not
good?
a good football team.
They're not, but it's your job to be good.
I know. And you said a couple of days ago that Shedeur Sanders is the favorite to go number 1 in the draft, which is objectively true. Everyone kind of thinks that he's the number 1 quarterback in college football. I don't think he's top. I'll say 5 to keep it modest, but I might even go bigger than that. I simply do not think Shedeur Sanders is a good quarterback, period.
How can you be the number 1 overall pick? I guess he has the receivers, but we saw how good he was when they were playing bad teams,
right.
And he looked the part, but he didn't look the part against the really good teams in the back end. So
I don't think he's in the conversation to be a number 1 pick. I know the odds are there and the public media talk is there. I just refuse to believe that NFL anything is considering him as the number 1 pick because I watched the games. You said it yourself. I'm a college football sicko. I was up till 3 a.m. watching Colorado.
He's a
Colorado
bowl
State
guy, dude, and not like the cool hippie kind.
It's
the beard and long hair says otherwise. But.
College football is my favorite sport in the entire world. I watch any game that's on TV, and I was watching Colorado last year, and out of all the players on the field, Shedeur Sanders was not one that impressed me. It was Travis Hunter, who I think is an incredible player and he'll do great at the next level. I think he'll be great this year as well. But Shedeur Sanders he's not phenomenal at quarterback.
What up, Jimmy, by the way? I saw that Jimmy, he had to get up and pace outside the room when we were talking Notre Dame earlier, but he's chiming in. He says he's taking the under. He did say relax on the Notre Dame slander to Mark. I don't know what Mark. Mark has a big old Buckeye logo in his, so.
Mark's the reason we took the trip over to the shoe after the golf simulator. He said if the boys are in Columbus, we need a selfie outside the shoe. So me, Elliot, and Jimmy at about 1:30 a.m. after the golf simulator drove over to the shoe, took a selfie outside.
Do you think that's
Mark.
what he meant when he said he wanted a selfie? Not like he didn't want to look at your 3 big heads. He wanted to be in the picture with you.
He wasn't there.
Fair enough. Did you invite him?
I don't have invite power for the memorial trip.
Mark, I'm gonna apologize. They should have invited you to. I don't think you wanted their selfie. I think he wanted a selfie with you guys.
His reply was very, very thankful. So
okay.
I think that is
then
what
maybe
he wanted.
you're giving them what they want. That's all that matters.
It's these non-Ohio State fans. He wanted to make sure they saw the match.
No kidding. That's the one wild thing too. That's why it's I'm glad you and I got this because I don't know if I could do a 2-hour show and not talk college football and not talk Ohio State.
Well, I do from 10 to 12, and it drives me crazy. They have no interest in college football whatsoever.
And by the way, that's totally fine because NFL runs everything.
Absolutely.
The Reds run everything. As long as you got the NFL, it's why it's so. Joe Burrow and the Bengals being as relevant as they are is big time. I don't know how hosts in irrelevant markets do it.
I couldn't agree more.
Dayton's not a big city, but I could pick whatever the hell I want to talk about. Right. I could talk about Ohio State. I could talk about Cincinnati. I could talk about Cleveland. I could talk about whatever I want. So that helps. But as far as those major markets, because Dayton's clearly not a major market, but I can't imagine doing a show. Kansas City's nice now because you got the Chiefs.
You could just talk about Mahomes forever.
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder if whatever off-season activities he picks up.
Quick Kansas City question.
What you got?
Do they have the number 1 overall pick in a redraft of both the NFL and MLB? Mahomes easily number 1 in the NFL. Bobby Witt Jr. has to be in the conversation, if not number 1 in the MLB.
At the very top. How old's Witt?
23?
Then yeah.
He 10 triples already this year. He's hitting for crazy power.
But you would have to put Cincinnati pretty close with that.
For sure.
right? Like when you look at Burrow / Ellie, you would have to kind of put that there as far as that's concerned. See you, Reed. But nonetheless, college football is better when Notre Dame is good, says Mark Fetter. See him and Jimmy.
I think that is one of the worst takes in sports across the board.
See what you did, Mark?
Not specifically when Notre Dame is good. That X sport is better when X team is good. I think that's a terrible take. Maybe college sports just because of how much brands drive everything. But professionally, when people are like, oh, baseball's better when the Red Sox are competitive. No, it's not. I hate the Red Sox. Baseball's better when the Yankees are winning World Series. No, it's not. Baseball's better when my team's the best team. I don't like that other teams make or break the sport, at least not in my opinion. I don't know if you have a different take on that.
To have a take on that, I would have to have actual ratings numbers and all that. Right now, there's so many different metrics that dictate whether that take is a good one or not. And we all live in a world where if I don't care about it, that means nobody cares about it, right? Right. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But I see what he's in college football, especially in the 14 playoff era. I know around here the Bearcats making the playoff that year was such a big deal, but the entire country was pissed about that.
Right.
That was the year to put a 2-loss Ohio State team in. As far as and as much as people hate Ohio State, not just here but across the country, they didn't want Ohio State to make it that year either. But they would have much rather watch Ohio State in the playoff than watch Cincinnati just get destroyed by Alabama, right? Not taking anything away from Cincinnati, but that fits that narrative from him. The sport's better when those teams,
for sure.
But so the 12-team playoff's going to loosen that up a bit. So that's a good thing. The 12-team playoff's going to allow the underdog, the Cinderella stories to still be relevant and make the game feel good while still getting your big matchups, just like what we get with March Madness.
I do wonder if the 12-team playoff is going to not have the same effect on parity that people think.
I don't think it is.
How many of those 10-2, 9-3? I guess Ohio State doesn't go 9-3, but how many of those 10-2 Ohio State teams that didn't make the playoff in the last decade would have won, or at least would have won a round or two? And obviously, that UC team, great story. Went into Notre Dame, beat a good Notre Dame team, had a great conference schedule, and they won all their games. They deserve to be in. I love it. Glad they made it. No one in their right mind thinks that UC team could beat an Ohio State team with C.J. Stroud, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, that whole roster that they had that year that had 2 losses and went to the Rose Bowl instead of the playoff. That's just not – no one thinks that would be the case. And if that 2 or 3 loss team gets in and wins, then we're going to be looking back at, we're just propping up these big programs again and expanding the field. Didn't get you exactly what you wanted with different national champions. It just got you – a less meaningful regular season. And because the last decade, college football has had more different national champions than college basketball. And college basketball is a 68-team field. It's not exactly this daunting lack of parity that people would have you think in college football. Obviously, the same teams are at the top a lot, and of the 130 teams or whatever, there's 40 that matter max. So I understand the people that hate that, but I don't think the expansion is going to get you the benefit that you wanted right away.
Grip it and rip it here on Chatterbox Sports. Look, that's 143. All right, we got 15 minutes, and I got to wrap this up and sprint to get,
Good stuff.
Yeah, nonetheless. But we're off and rolling here, talking about a lot of college football. And poor Jimmy, just when we're trying to veer away from the Notre Dame stuff, and we're talking about that year Cincinnati made the playoff. Well, who did Cincinnati beat in the non-con to stamp that off-season or that non-conference, slate?
Jimmy tried to stick it to Elliott when Elliott said, we ranked our favorite sporting events, and Elliott said Notre Dame UC was his favorite sporting event he's ever been to, and Jimmy said, well, it was your Super Bowl. Of course, that's how to belittle anyone that beats your team. You say, oh, it's their Super Bowl. Elliott just responded, yeah, it was, and it's the best win I've ever had. So I guess if the small school agrees it's their Super Bowl, then celebrate the Super Bowl.
Nonetheless, Jimmy Collins, Notre Dame, is what it is. Nonetheless, hey Casey's in here, everybody. No one can see him yet. But
no one can see him.
No one can see him yet, but Casey is hopped in as far as that's concerned. All right, NBA Finals Game 3 coming up here later on tonight, and my thing, you want to talk about the brands mattering, so it's a good transition into this for the NBA stuff right now. You have Boston's a weird one for me because Boston's a brand that you think is a strong brand that should carry ratings. And I think the Game 1 was the least watched Game 1 of the NBA Finals since 2007. And that was that year that the Cavs had LeBron with Boobie Gibson going up against one of the most boring dynasties in NBA history in the San Antonio Spurs. So you had to go back to 2007. the NBA, I was watching these finals. I mean, I'm watching Luka, I'm watching Kyrie, I'm watching Tatum, I'm watching Brown, and I'm watching great players. But I think there's levels to this, and I think that although the NBA probably has collectively more stars collectively in this decade and this era than in any other era, I still think that you take LeBron out, it's just missing that generational talent. Like, that's what I don't feel like I'm watching something. I'm watching a good finals. I'm watching two good teams. I'm watching good star players. I feel like, well, everyone says the NBA is healthy, and I guess it's hard to argue that when they just get that $1 billion media rights deal, right? Like, and it's healthy from those standards. That, I guess attendance is higher this season than it's been in quite some time. There's more sellouts this year than since the early 2000s across the board. So there's different metrics to support that, but from a rating standpoint, it's just not must-watch TV. You can't, when LeBron's in the finals, it has to be must-watch with what he is now. When MJ was in it, Kobe, Shaq, like that stuff. The wild thing about all of that now is I tune in and I'm watching good players. I'm just not watching the it players, and I don't know if the it player exists in the NBA outside of LeBron when he officially hangs it up. People, take your political stuff aside. There's no one like LeBron, and there's no one like LeBron coming up. Wembanyama might be that, but even Wembanyama is still not putting off those LeBron vibes. This isn't a shot at Luka or any other great player in the NBA. You take LeBron out. Maybe Wembanyama has all the makeups to be that generational talent, but for right now, you take LeBron out, there's just not a generational talent that's swimming in the pool of depth of star players in the league right now.
It takes so much more than elite skill to do what LeBron James did for his brand, for his personality, and the way he grew himself off the court. Wembanyama might be a phenomenal player, and this might be nationalist or whatever, but he's French, and his first language isn't even English. To be the face of the league, it's going to take an American to grow it in America. And that's why you see when Anthony Edwards blows up like he did this playoff run, everyone points to him. Well, maybe he's the face of the league. Well, Jason Tatum brings the Celtics to their third finals in 5 years. They say, well, maybe he's the face of the league. Jaylen Brown starts tearing it up and looks like he's a little bit better in crunch time than Jason Tatum does, in their second finals now in a couple years. And he's outperforming him yet again. And people say, well, maybe Jaylen Brown is the face of the league. Everyone's looking for that next LeBron. And some people take that as who's the next best player in the league. It's so much more than that.
Yep.
It's who can get the shoe deals, who can be on the next Sprite cranberry ads around Christmas time. Who can be like LeBron has been married to Savannah his entire career, dated her in high school. No stories about anything bad off the court. Obviously, you can talk about politics all you want with LeBron, and some people have that influence their take. But if you want to go straight basketball, he's had nothing that clouds his career basketball-wise off the court. And even his political stance and everything, that has all come once he was incredibly established in the league as one of the best players of all time. He's been able to let loose and kind of, talk more freely about what he believes in and all that stuff. But it's easy to point to Wembanyama because I do think he's going to be incredible. He's going to be a multi-time Defensive Player of the Year, probably a multi-time MVP. He's going to lead the Spurs back to relevance, which they haven't really had since Tim Duncan retired. But it's going to take someone like an Anthony Edwards, who might not be as good of a player, but he has the charisma. He has the on-camera ability. He has the social media clips and everything like that to continue to grow. And some people in the chat saying Jordan greater than LeBron. Sure, that's a completely fine take. Jordan did the exact same thing. Jordan was on the first team that included professional players to go to the Olympics, and he grew the game nationally. He dropped, obviously, the Jordan shoes, which are still, to this day, probably the only basketball shoes that look good off the court. So, it's all about what you do off the court, and I think that's a bigger issue in face of the league. And that's why no one has been able to catch LeBron, because you have players like Giannis and Luka and Nikola Jokic who are great players and probably better players than LeBron at this point in his career, but they don't have the impact outside of the court as a 39-year-old LeBron does.
Yeah, and LeBron, like the most hypocritical thing about all the LeBron slander that's out there is, of course, when people want to do the GOAT debate, and that's not what we're doing. That's tired, exhausting radio. I'm not wanting to get into that. But the way people move the goalposts with him, it drives me nuts, because here's the thing. We do use championships to prop people up. Like, MJ's the GOAT because he had 6. Cool. I will never change someone's mind on that. And that's cool. I'm giving up on that. That's one of those retired sports debates, and we'll keep that off to the side. However, I am calling out the hypocrisy that you want to use the championships as the reason to keep LeBron at arm's length away from MJ, but also when LeBron did what he needed to do to pursue championships, you also use that against him.
Right.
Because if he stayed in Cleveland, if he never left Cleveland the first time, remember, the Cavaliers, efforts to make, to give him a championship team. You gave him an aged Shaquille O'Neal. You gave him an aged Antoine Jameson. You gave him Larry Hughes, but no one thought that the Cavs were Larry Hughes away as a sidekick. Larry Hughes was supposed to be LeBron's Pippen. Like, what are we doing?
Right.
Like, you gave him all these old players. You never gave him anything of substance that was truly going to be a piece. I mean, technically, when he came into the league, you had Carlos Boozer, and Carlos Boozer was supposed to sign that extension, and that was supposed to be that number 2. And then
Carlos Boozer hated LeBron.
Yeah, he was supposed to go to. He actually announced that they were about to get a deal done in Cleveland, and then he spurns them to go to Utah. I mean, how bad is it for Cleveland that you got spurned to go to Utah? I mean, that's pretty wild. He played with Darren Williams. I mean, that was kind of that Karl Malone / John Stockton 2.0 thing that they were kind of going for. So the Cavs didn't do their part. He signed that second extension with Cleveland. They didn't give him anything, even though they did get to that finals. But look at they didn't give him something to take to the finals. He drugged that team to the finals, where they ultimately got swept by the Spurs that year, that 2007 year we talked about. So when LeBron said, well, man, I'm 7 years in my career and don't have a championship, and I'm 0-for-1 in the finals, and I want to be the GOAT, and I know that the championships is how to do it. So I'm going to leave and go to Miami, and I'm going to play with Chris Bosh, and I'm going to play with Dwayne Wade. Oh my gosh, he's chasing championships. It's like, but that's the name of the game. You say it's about championships until the player makes it about championships, and then we have a problem with it. That's my problem with the hypocrisy of covering LeBron. The other thing is selfish NBA athletes, right? They're just money hungry. They're James Harden. James Harden is an example of a money hungry athlete. Carmelo Anthony, an example of a money hungry athlete. Like everything is based on money and money alone. LeBron and D Wade and Bosh, they never got credit for agreeing to take less money to team up in Miami. They didn't go and all three take every dollar that was coming to them. They all left money on the table because why? The name of the game in sports is championships, and they did everything they could to win a championship. They won 2. So the LeBron moving of the goalpost thing with him, it drives me nuts because everything about his career has always been about when he hops from team to team. He's chasing after those championships that you told him he had to win to be great. And then when he does what you tell him to, you still try to water it down. I mean, it's wild to me as far as the LeBron slander is concerned.
Yeah, and just not to get into the GOAT debate, but I feel
look at you.
To clear
You're
something up in the chat.
Clear it up.
Mark Fetter says Jordan won with B.J. Armstrong. He also had Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and Horace Grant, Hall of Famers on the teams. Michael Jordan never advanced out of the first round but one time without Scottie Pippen. And we punish LeBron for making the finals. So that's the only thing I like to drop in every time we get to the GOAT debate.
Well, and the last thing, as far as that's concerned too, people say, well, MJ didn't have to bounce around from team to team and all this other stuff. And I said, well, because he didn't have to. Do you think if the Bulls never got him, Scottie Pippen, you think if they never went up for the second go-round, you think he would have stayed with the Bulls that entire stretch if they never could? They had great ownership. For that stretch and great ownership, obviously you could bring up the examples of the post-MJ era and say, well, how great was he post-MJ, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. I don't think that Mike Brown and company is very good here in Cincinnati, but you can't argue that for whatever decisions he made to put the right pieces in place, Cincinnati's made a lot of really good decisions as of late. I don't think Mike Brown's a great owner, but whatever decisions he made to put the team in the position they're in now, pretty solid.
Right.
Well, that was the Bulls. They made a lot of great decisions in the 90s, late 80s into the 90s to propel them to the point to where Michael didn't have to leave. But if he did, that's the thing too. Talk about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, he loves Cincinnati. He loves this. When you have Tee Higgins, you have Jamar Chase, and you have the defense, you have this, and you're winning. And of course, he loves winning. Right. And the second he feels he can't win in Cincinnati, guess what? He'll be a disgruntled quarterback like pretty much every other quarterback that gets disgruntled when they feel that their window to win is not being met with the same urgency from the front office that they are. So LeBron, 7 years in Cleveland. He gave 7 years in Cleveland. They didn't give him anything. That's why I approved when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City. You know how many years he was at OKC before he left to join the Warriors? 9.
Was he 9?
9 years.
Wow.
He played for the Oklahoma City Thunder for 9 years, and people said he should have stayed there and continued to build it. The Oklahoma City Thunder got to the finals with Serge Ibaka, with James Harden, with Russell Westbrook. And Kevin Durant said, I loved playing for James Brooks. He loved playing for him. What did the Thunder do over the next 2 years, 2.5 years after that finals appearance? They got rid of Serge Ibaka. They got rid of Russell Westbrook. They got rid of James Harden, and they fired James Brooks. They didn't add to the roster. They didn't try to so he said he's out Because also Kevin Durant knew, man, for me to have I don't want to be a Carmelo Anthony.
Right.
I don't want to be a Patrick Ewing. I don't want to be an all-time great without a championship. I got to go get championships. And then we criticize them for when they do what we say they have to do, and that's to go win titles.
My gripe with KD is it would be like LeBron leaving the Cavs to go
much
to the
different with
2008
KD.
Celtics.
What?
Like, it would be like LeBron leaving the Cavs to go play with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Rondo. Not building his own team with the Heat. Not that it's that much different, but the fact that you're up 3-1 to a team who's 73-9, and then you blow that lead, and then you just say, well, I'll just go join them. If you can't beat them, join them. That's where I had the issue. If he would have went somewhere else to chase a ring, not the team that just came back on him, I think I would, have a little bit softer on him. But, he's done a big 180 in my brain over the last couple of years. I think I love KD. I'm back on the horse. He's one of my favorite players in the whole league.
Whoa, you're a KD guy.
I like KD.
That guy has, you know how many great hands he's been dealt?
Yeah.
And he doesn't bring in all the pot that's in the middle?
I think he's one of the best pure scorers of all time. He falls down to me with LeBron in like the
scored, yeah.
You'll never see anything like Kevin Durant ever again. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see a 7-footer who can shoot like this ever again.
No, that I agree with you. Talent-wise, yes.
That's
but
all
man,
I mean.
That guy drives me nuts with the fact that, even with Phoenix in the postseason, he wasn't happy with. Now, I know they didn't get him a point guard, but again, we don't give LeBron the benefit of the doubt. We didn't give Kobe the benefit. People, you look back at Kobe's career, he finishes with all those championships. But the bottom line is there was a lot of those up and down years too. He wanted out of L.A.
Oh yeah.
You heard that Jerry West story today that he was so pissed at the Lakers he wanted to go he wanted to go to Memphis. That's how much of an ultimate competitor he was, that he was willing. I don't want to live in Los Angeles. I want to go to Memphis.
Right.
To play for the Grizzlies, because he wanted to go play where he felt he can go win, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. But nonetheless. All right, what time we got? It's 1:57.
1:57.
We're pretty much done because I got to get on the road. I got to get back to Dayton so I can repeat a lot of this.
Sounds good.
Right? So, grip it and rip it.
Grip it and rip it with Kinner and Tissot.
There you go. It's Chatterbox's new show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday immediately after Off the Bench. Again, the whole crew here does a fantastic job. I got to see it full. I've seen it for months now, but just to see it on display last week at the Memorial was pretty cool. Got a chance to get to know you guys a little better. Got to meet you and get to know you a little bit better. But I'm excited about the show. Good stuff. A little slow start, but I think we kind of got rolling.
We're good. And it's just going to get smoother and smoother as we go.
So not bad for Nope. We didn't promote it.
Right.
The graphics aren't even right. That's on me. That ain't on anyone. That's on me. That's not Kev.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not Kev. I just got a note that we'll have that logo here by the end of today. So we'll have a new logo by Friday.
Sounds good.
We'll have a whole new little setup here. Yeah, so I'm excited. But Mark, appreciate you. Sean, Colton, everybody in the chat, thank you on YouTube. I see a lot of people on the Twitter side too tuning in there. Follow Chatterbox Sports on all socials. Multiple ways to take in all the programming here on this side. Closing thoughts? Oh, I caught you by surprise, dude. My bad.
You did? No, we're all good. Yeah, just glad to be here. Glad to be doing this. It's always a good time. Like you said earlier, I'll still be on off the bench for it seems like the rest of the Red season. Then there's going to be some roster changes, I guess, is how to say it. So we'll be here ready to rock all through the fall. I saw a lot of people in the chat recognized our shirts to start, and they're wondering if it's going to be an Ohio State show. Not officially. But I have a feeling we're going to talk about a lot of Buckeyes.
So the bottom line is we'll talk some Buckeyes. We won't talk all Buckeyes, but we know our audience. We are not the WNBA. We want to give you what you want, not what we think. So just throwing that out there.
Sure.
Just throwing that out there. I'm anti WNBA right now.
I can tell.
Yeah, I can tell. They're messing with my girl Caitlin. Okay,
Should be an Olympian.
I'm gonna get a Caitlin
Should be an
Clark
Olympian.
tattoo. I'm a big tattoo guy now. Look at that. There
you go.
All right.
That's a good tattoo.
I got to ask the wife's permission, but I'm gonna get a big Caitlin Clark tattoo right here to fill out to keep the sleeve going.
That's good stuff.
And then I'm gonna
get the rest of the arm, Caitlin.
I've been afraid of tattoos my whole life because I'm a wuss. Okay. When I was young, when I had to go get shots, it took like 7 nurses to hold me down. And when I say young, like 22. Okay, like to hold me down to get a shot. Once he got started, I'm like, oh, this ain't bad at all.
There you go.
It ain't bad. I'm already thinking of ideas for my next one. Caitlin Clark, right here.
That's
and
big.
then WNBA right here with a big X,
the
on
big nose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. It has been, I almost called it the wrong show name. See, I almost said the Kinner and Kev Show is almost where I went with it. Kinner and Kev's coming up here later on. But no, grip it and rip it right here on Chatterbox Sports.